Growing up, Nelson Mandela wasn't just a leader. He transcended mere leadership to become a resplendent icon. He personified justice, integrity, and an unwavering dedication to equality. He wasn't merely a man. He existed in the realm between saint and angel, a radiant symbol of hope and peace. But in recent times, there's been an unsettling murmur, casting shadows of doubt over his once unassailable legacy. Conversations have arisen, skeptics have emerged, and for many, Mandela's halo seems to have lost some of its brilliance. In the midst of this uncertain terrain, South Africans are raising a profound question. Did Mandela sell us out? This video unveils the complex tapestry of challenges that Mandela confronted, inviting you to be the judge. The story unfolds, and the verdict is yours to deliver. First, a quick history of the ANC and the Freedom Charter they adopted. In the throes of history, the African National Congress emerged on January 8, 1912, with a noble mission to unite South Africans across the intricate tapestry of ethnic and tribal lines, all through peaceful channels of change. But as time flowed, so did the currents of its ideology and strategies. In 1955, the ANC boldly adopted the Freedom Charter, championing the lofty ideals of equality for all, and boldly asserting that South Africa belongs to everyone who calls it home. Yet within its bold lines lay more radical and left-leaning propositions, like the nationalization of critical sectors within the nation, encompassing the riches of the earth, the heart of the nation's wealth in its reserve bank, and the very soil that the people tread upon. Critics have often labeled Nelson Mandela as a sellout due to the non-realization of these grand ideals. However, before we cast such a harsh verdict, we must dive deeper into the intricate fabric of political evolution and change, for therein lies the subtleties and complexities that shape the course of history. Dating back as far as recorded history, political changes where there is complete changing of the guard, where a different group takes over, such as what happened in South Africa, occur either by challenging the military might of a regime or staging a coup d'etat. You have to either defeat your opponent's military, like Fidel Castro did in Cuba, or take over the military from within, like Idi Amin did in Uganda. Yet, South Africa's saga was a different narrative entirely. The African National Congress did bear arms and employ guerrilla tactics, but the ruling power didn't capitulate due to military defeat or an insurrection within the military ranks. Instead, an extraordinary, game-changing force came into play, the inexorable weight of external political and economic pressure, a force known as sanctions. On the fateful day of November 6, 1968, the United Nations etched history with the passage of Resolution 1761, a clarion call to its member nations. It urged the world to shun the then South African government. Yet, the seismic impact of international pressure didn't fully reverberate until 1986. It was this year that the United States, a global behemoth, decided to wield its sanctions against the South African government. This monumental decision came on the heels of President P.W. Botha's defiant Rubicon speech, a moment when he clung tenaciously to his position, ignoring the mounting global pressure. With the U.S. casting its formidable weight into the fray, the end of the apartheid regime was written on the wall. But as this monumental shift promised liberation for the ANC and other entities with their eye on power, it simultaneously posed a momentous dilemma for the ANC itself. With the U.S. playing such a big part in your ascension to power, where does that leave your relationship with your long-term ally, the Soviet Union? The bond between the ANC and the Soviet Union was an enduring connection, a relationship that began to weave its intricate threads in the 1940s through the ANC's relationship with the SACP and deepening over time. As the 1960s dawned and stretched into the 1980s, the Soviet Union became a stalwart pillar of support for the ANC, offering not just training and arms, but a profound infusion of ideology and tactical wisdom. It was a partnership forged with the understanding that if the ANC ascended to power, the Soviet Union would stand as a guardian, akin to the role it played for Castro's Cuba. Like a vigilant big brother, it would shield the nation and nurture its economic endeavors while it ushering in some of the more audacious and visionary ideas. But the world's collective sentiment was shifting. Weary of communism's stance on human rights and disenamored with it as an alternative to Western capitalism, the allure of the Soviet Union was waning, and the cracks in its foundation became ever more apparent as it inched towards its eventual collapse in 1991, 3 years prior to the ANC seizing the reins of power. This loss of a powerful ally was not the only blow to the implementation of a socialist program. There were also internal ideological changes within the ANC that made the Freedom Charter's more ambitious goals drift into distance, changes that were fueled by powerful groups of wealthy men. In the intriguing tapestry of South Africa's political evolution, the consultative business movement emerges as a pivotal force, established by prominent businessmen who recognized the inevitability of transition due to the economic conditions that sanctions created. They began meeting with leaders from various parties, including secret meetings with ANC officials. Their aim was to guide these parties away from the siren song of socialist and Marxist ideals. Instead, they endeavored to steer them toward a more pragmatic economic program that harmonized with their vision of the world's evolving trajectory. It was a strategic maneuver to shape the course of history in a direction that resonated with their perception of the future. But the consultative business movement was not alone in its foray into the ANC's inner sanctum during this pivotal period, and it is widely suspected that many of the enduring ANC empires were nurtured during these clandestine rendezvous. Yet, there exists another group, somewhat elusive and easy to underestimate, that wielded perhaps the mightiest influence of all as we delve deeper into the annals of this transformative era. Their narrative unfolds as a compelling testament to the clandestine dynamics that helped shape the nation. Western media played a vital role in bringing the plight of the oppressed in South Africa to the global stage, transforming the narrative of their suffering into an electrifying tale of resilience. With unwavering commitment, they exposed the darkest corners of life under the oppressive apartheid regime, casting the African National Congress as bold champions of freedom, defying an egregiously unjust system. The ANC wasn't merely portrayed as a potential successor, but as the unassailable torchbearer of justice. They also turned a blind eye to some of the more controversial tactics employed by the ANC, choosing instead to shine a spotlight on their unwavering determination. This not only created an aura of invincibility, but also further solidified the ANC's cause. Perhaps the most astounding feat achieved by Western media was their transformation of Nelson Mandela into a universally revered figure, an icon of virtue in the Western world. Their unswerving support played a pivotal role in Mandela's historic Nobel Peace Prize win in 1993, solidifying his legacy as a symbol of peace and hope. Picture yourself in Nelson Mandela's shoes as he steps into that high-stakes negotiation room, facing a formidable cast of characters. The National Party, undefeated militarily and holding substantial negotiating power. They had the option to pull the plug on negotiations if the transition terms didn't suit them and take a gamble with the continued sanctions. The United States, a major orchestrator behind the National Party's change of heart, with a strategic role in creating the conditions for their willingness to negotiate. Western media, which elevated Mandela to a mythical status, ensuring global reverence for him and the ANC's struggle. Their influence guaranteed international respect and celebration. Groups of wealthy businessmen, determined to maintain a fertile economic landscape for wealth maximization. Their temptations were alluring, capable of swaying even the most steadfast as their networks of persuasion reached deep into the corridors of power. Yet, amid this power play, a stark absence lingers: the Soviet Union, denying Mandela the protective shield needed to pursue the more radical aspirations of the Freedom Charter. Before hastily casting judgment and tarnishing Mandela's legacy, envision yourself in his place. Recognize the Herculean task he faced, negotiating amidst a battleground of forces, each with a vested interest in suppressing socialist policies, and their formidable clout and connections threatened to render the nation he hoped to inherit worthless. While compromise may have been his fate, it's essential to appreciate the near-impossible circumstances he confronted. Mandela's legacy lies in his remarkable achievement of a peaceful transition to democracy for South Africa against seemingly insurmountable odds.